For me, I'm very excited about this because, Mr. Adebajo, we've been speaking about leadership and I've been watching a lot of your online content. And so when it was suggested that we have this sort of roundtable to share ideas, I jumped at the chance because I'm getting a masterclass from two really incredible leaders. So for the audience, perhaps let's give a little bit of background. So I've known you for a few years, Mr. Adebajo, and you're one of my mentors. Why don't you give us a quick intro about yourself? I know you are the Group Chief Executive of UT Financial Services and UT Homes, and also have the pleasure of having Dr. Kofi Osei-Kusi here, who leads the Pan-African Leadership Institute. But just give us a little bit of flavor about yourself. So why don't we start with you, Mr. Adebajo?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And, we've known each other for a while. And if anybody knows, my name is Ade Adebajo. I'm into the finance industry. I'm a financial consultant, investment banking. That's my core, really. I studied finance and I've been working over the past 25 years now as a consultant, as an investment banker. That's the core of what I do. But along that as well, I'm into real estate a lot. So we do a lot of real estate. We build properties, we sell, we rent out, and then delved into, the hospitality industry as well. But my core is finance, and that's what I studied. That's what I do the most. And thank you very much.
That's quite a wide spectrum, financial services, hospitality, real estate. So you have your hand in a lot of pies.
We're trying to. We're trying.
And I know you started off your background. I know you're being quite reserved about it, but I do know you started with sort of S&P 500 companies when you started your career, and you've built an international business. So again, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. So I actually did work with Lincoln Financial Group, and then went on to work for St. James's Place Partnership as well as St. James's Place Bank. So I work with them. That's one of the prestigious companies in the United Kingdom. It was a good experience. It taught me a lot of things in finance as well as broadened my scope. There were a lot of training, and you get to meet a lot of people. So it was a good experience to work for St. James's. I'm proud of it till today.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for that. And Dr. Kofi Osei-Kusi, this is our first time meeting, but again, your reputation precedes you. I know you're deep into philanthropy and into leadership and development, but why don't you just give us a flavor about yourself, your background, and what it is you do?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Charles Juba. It's an honor to meet you. I'm very humbled to be on this platform. So Kofi Osei-Kusi obviously is my name, and the core of my work is leadership. So I've been into leadership for the last 25 years, straight from high school. Started to run a leadership organization, a youth leadership organization. And I've gone out to do different things, work with a number of international NGOs and worked with the Australian government and different spheres of work. But the core heart of my career has been into leadership development, particularly youth leadership development. But in the last 10 years, a core part of my work has been focused on philanthropy. And we've been working to invest in the youth in Ghana and in different parts of Africa, particularly providing educational scholarships and mentoring and coaching and volunteering campaigns and so on and so forth. So I think the common thread running through my work over the last 25 years has been with my boss, I call him my boss, Mr. Adebajo, on the Pan-African Leadership Institute, helping to raise a new breed of leaders, holistic entrepreneurial leaders for this continent that we love so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here and giving me the opportunity to have this conversation with you both. And I think that's a perfect segue into the main topic that we're dealing with today: leadership. It's a very complex concept, deceptively so. So I guess Dr. Kofi, what does effective leadership mean to you?
Well, thanks for that. If we're looking at what leadership is, it's a really complex, sort of concept, like you said. But when you talk about effective leadership, I'll put emphasis on the word effective. Effectiveness is the ability to use resources, to maximize the use of resources for the achievement of the set objective. So effective, whether it's an institution or whether it's a particular body, how you mobilize resources and maximize the use of those resources to achieve the vision or the set objectives of that, whatever setup that is. So effective leadership is pretty simple. It's about resources and how, whether it's human resource, whether it's financial resource, whether it's land resource, whether it's capital, whatever it is, how you are able to effectively, or how you're able to pull those resources together. And of course, we know that resources are always limited, but how you're able to attract resources and how you're able to put those resources together properly in order to achieve, the objective for which, those that institution or that organization is set up to do within. Of course, time is also a resource. So being able to use the shortest possible time and the resources that you have available to you to achieve those objectives within that limited time.
That's remarkable. Thanks. And Mr. Adebajo, I'm sure, would you like to add?
Oh yes. For me, I truly believe that getting the best out of what is available to you, that is the people that are available to you, the team that you have, getting the best out of them is what I'll term as effective leadership. What makes it effective is the fact that you are able to pull out something from them that someone else is not able to pull out from them. So you get the best out of them. You help them get a clear vision of where you are going, what you are working towards. Then you create an enabling environment for them to thrive in it, for them to succeed. Now, the key is that you have to help create that environment so that they can succeed. You have to help them create the environment. And that's for me. You look at the capacity of what you have, and then you work towards it. You streamline your strategy towards that and make it effective. That's what I think effectively has to do.
There's a lot of really powerful concepts you've outlined there. Let me just see if I can make sure I play back. So, we're talking about attracting the right resources, enabling your resources to thrive in an environment, allocating them against a correct vision, and also making sure that you give them the resources to enable them to be able to perform. I think part of that is also having a clear vision, I suppose, because, when I think about leadership, a lot of people think about it as leading from the front, but sometimes also being at the back and making sure that the people in front, the people that you set out to do what they need to do, have clarity on where they're going. So that's really important, and thanks for that. But I guess, how do you measure that effectiveness? How do you measure if you are being an effective leader? I know, Mr. Adebajo, you were listed as one of the 100 most proactive, results-driven CEOs of 2020 in Nigeria, which is a very prestigious accolade, I must say. So how do you measure if you are being effective?
Now, the truth is that results always speak.
Yeah.
You see, effectiveness will lead to what makes you effective is that you get results. Is it working? Because you've got to stop and check, what are we doing there? And is it working? How engaged are the team? Can you see them being engaged? And is your strategy, do they understand the strategy? Can you see them playing towards that strategy, working towards that strategy? That's how you know if this is a work. Because if you create the enabling environment for them and the strategy is clear enough and they're engaged in it, then it will work. And so results will come out, and that shows that this thing is working.
That's very, 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 very true. I suppose, having that clear sort of emergent strategy where you're constantly learning, but also your team understanding. So I think that's one of the things that organizations miss. They have a strategy as a great headline, picture, but that doesn't really trickle down to the cold face of the business. Dr. Kofi, how do you help make sure that what you are planning is effectively implemented as a leader? I know you work primarily in youth development. So with youth development, it's a very important topic because that's the future. Africa, for example, is going to be going to have the most, make sure I get this right, the youngest population in the whole world in the next few decades. So how are you making sure that what you're doing is effective?
Absolutely. I think it always starts with vision and purpose. I mean, every organization is set up with a particular vision and a particular purpose. So that's got to be very clear right from the beginning. If you don't have a goal post, then how do you measure how many goals are scored? Yeah. So you need to set the goal post, which is the clear vision. And when you have the vision set, which is very clear for the organization, for a family, or for whatever institution you're leading, then you can measure how effective you are. So vision, goal setting are really critical for the measurement of effectiveness.
That's really important. Very, very good. And let's go internal a little bit more. How would you describe your leadership style? I think last year taught me a lot of lessons, and I'm going to come on to that in a second, but it taught me a lot about myself as a leader.
Interesting.
What's your leadership style?
Yeah, there are many different styles of leadership, and I think my style is more transformational. I'm more of a transformational leader. Transformational leaders are leaders who lead with vision, so they kind of inspire you towards the achievement of a particular vision. They are servant leadership, they are quiet leadership, they are charismatic leadership, there is autocratic leadership, there is democratic or consultative leadership. So all of these different styles are there. And it's hard to draw a clear line between all of them. There's a mixture of them here and there, but I think I'm more of a transformational leader. So for most of the work I've done over the years, it's having a clear vision and inspiring people to come together, to achieve that particular set objective.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting one because that draws on certain other attributes. There's people skills in there, there's communication skills, there's the ability to paint a picture that's compelling enough for people to rally around. Of course, that's contextual as well. Some leadership styles are better suited to different contexts, and I suppose in the work you do, that makes sense. How would you describe your leadership style, Mr. Adebajo?
To be honest, I believe a lot in transformational as well. But leadership by exception.
Interesting.
I try to get the best people together. And you see, you will not always succeed in getting the best people. But even when I get those we try and make the people the best. And I believe that's what leadership is about. So you get the best people together, or if they're not very good, you build them up, you encourage them, you train them. That's why training is important in this scope of leadership as well. And then you create an environment. I keep talking about creating an environment. You see, you can have the best people around you, but if you as a leader do not create an environment where they can thrive, where you can bring the best out of them, you're not going to get results. And so it's so important that leaders understand that the onus is not just on those you are leading, but on you as a leader to create that environment. And you must be careful. You look at the resources you have, you look at their capacity, and that's what you will use to determine what kind of environment you create. You make decisions that will help them, that will guide them. That's the kind of leadership that I believe in.
Yeah, and I've worked under many leaders who have led by exception as well. That whole idea of I've empowered you to go and do what you need to do. So, I expect you to get results. And if you need something, come to me, that sort of thing. So I think that is also very powerful and compelling, and it demonstrates a level of trust, I suppose, in the resources that you've applied. But you talked about environment. 2020 as an environment was one for the history books. And so, it's something that I know a lot of us still been reflecting on. And I know we've seen many posts and people have talked to death about it, but just briefly, what would you say you've learned about yourself in the last year in the context of COVID, in the context of the political upheaval that's been going on around the world? So I'll start with you, Mr. Adebajo. What key lessons have you learned about yourself as a leader?
To be honest, what I've learned is that, especially 2020, like you said, with COVID, which was unexpected, hit the whole world, shut down, lockdowns everywhere. One thing I discovered was that, we focus on creating value. It endures, irrespective of what is happening. Even in a challenging environment as the COVID situation, focusing on creating value does endure. It stands out. These are the things that I learned. And then I did learn that, to adaptability. This is what is happening now. We've got to adapt. We've got to re-strategize. And so I learned quickly that we have to adapt to new things. Even these Zoom calls came as a result of all that. We needed to work from home and still be effective. We needed to work from home and still be able to discharge the same level of service. And so we adapted to all these things. But one of the key things I'll tell you is this: I didn't know it all. So this is where part of the leadership skills is that the ability to also listen to people. So I put the team together and we had a roundtable discussion. It was some of the that I took on board that made us succeed and stand as a company despite the pandemic. It wasn't that I knew it all. So we all chipped in. And that's part of the style of leadership that I love.
That's exceptional, and I guess the proof is there because again, like I said, you were listed as one of the 100 most effective CEOs in Nigeria. So I suppose that recipe worked well for you. And Dr. Kofi, if we think about those qualities and the lessons learned from last year, what qualities do you think really helped you as a leader sort of stay the course and stay resilient throughout that whole troublesome year that we had? Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. Like Mr. Adebajo said, adaptability. In addition to that, for me, it was the fact that there is no need to panic as a leader. As a leader, people draw their energy from you, and crisis times are bound to happen. It's critical not to panic. It's critical to be bold as a leader. There is no need to be afraid because, like he rightly also pointed out, there were incredible opportunities that we could never have foreseen prior to the COVID. And so as a leader, as you lead to crisis, that you got to be calm and you got to be bold and you got to have faith. You got to be positive, right? Because in the midst of all the crisis, there are always incredible opportunities. So being able to be calm and being able to be positive and to be full of faith and to expect the best out of the worst, it's crucial for a leader that is, if you like, leading people through times of crisis. So we have come to realize that crises and troubles and uncertainties are the order of the day, and it's not going to pass away. But being able to be calm, you are able to identify incredible new opportunities that will accelerate, your organization, and even in the area of efficiency, like he also mentioned, we've all become a lot more efficient. I mean, we are traveling around less, we are driving around less, we are wasting less money on so many things that we thought were so crucial, and yet COVID has showed us that we can't work effectively with less resources and achieve maximum results through challenging times. So it's been brilliant, learning to be calm, learning to be positive, learning to be a person of faith, and expecting the best out of the worst.
Excellent. And I think last year really showed that you can't plan for everything. I don't think any businesses could have planned to. If you're a retail firm, you could have gone through every contingency, but at no time would you have ever thought of a contingency where all the shops had to close or all borders were closed or people movement was reduced down to almost zero. So I do understand that point about being resilient, being adaptable, focusing on value. We're nearing the end of this conversation. Again, I could sit with you both and learn so much. So I'm really appreciate you making time to speak today. Dr. Kofi, why don't we touch on the Pan-African Leadership Institute? Because I know Mr. Adebajo sits on the governing council. Maybe you're going to be a doctor. Maybe that's the next thing. And I know, Dr. Kofi, it's something that you're leading. What touch on that a bit in the context of where's Africa today and where are we going as a continent?
Let me quote from one gentleman, John C. Maxwell, who says that everything rises and falls on leadership. And we know Africa is bedeviled with so many problems. We have incredible resources. I mean, this whole phrase of effective leadership is so critical to Africa because the question is, are we effectively utilizing the resources that we have been so blessed? We have abundant human resource, like you quoted. We have the youngest youth population in the world. We have natural resources. Are we effective? Are we mobilizing those resources effectively, human and natural, to achieve the objective and the vision that we have for our countries and our continent? So clearly we are not. And so that shows us that, we have a huge problem across this continent of ours. And we're not doing very well in terms of leadership. We're not maximizing the resource available to us. The two of the challenges we have in Africa, one is character, the heart of the leader. We do have leaders who are not for the people. Many of these leaders, whether organizational or political, do not put other people first. They put themselves first. They lack character. And we have the second problem for me is that our leaders are very short-sighted. Many of our leaders are just thinking about what they can get today and how they can be popular today rather than being effective in the long term. I think at some point you spoke about how do you measure the effectiveness of your decisions. You measure the effectiveness of a decision. If a decision is effective, it's about the long-term impact. So an effective decision is the decision that makes the best long-term impact for you and for the people around you. So the Pan-African Leadership Institute, we put together last year, and the vision is really to help develop holistic, entrepreneurial, and conscientious leaders. It's so critical that no matter the field of leadership that you play in, that you would think as an entrepreneur, you would think innovation, you think adaptability. Conscientious is crucial, that you develop the character and the heart of the leader. Without that, Einstein said that if you have intelligence and if you have charisma and you lack character, your people are finished. Yeah. So it's so critical that in addition to having intelligent leaders and in addition to having charismatic leaders, we need leaders who have a heart, who have character, to be able to pull these three together, to be able to lead for the people, because leadership is not just for self, it's always for others. And I can go on and on, but the Pan-African Leadership Institute is really about, executive leadership education for executives, but we're looking at leadership development in different fields like political leadership, corporate leadership, entrepreneurial leadership, youth leadership, philanthropic leadership, educational leadership, traditional leadership, spiritual leadership. So these different fields of leadership, although they all lead in different areas, like you rightly said at the beginning, the field you're leading in may help to choose the style of leadership that you need to adopt, because you don't lead the military the same way you will lead a political party. So you need to learn the nuances of leadership to be effective in each of these different fields.
That's excellent. I mean, great. And I think your passion sort of just really comes across in this area. Mr. Adebajo, just to be wrapped up, I think you touched on something there, Dr. Kofi, about making effective decisions and being able to just be effective. And I think just as we wrap up, Mr. Adebajo, so you lead a really successful financial services firm that has different entities in a group. How do you manage, it's going to be a group question, how do you manage that whole big picture view of everything, as well as keeping on top of the day-to-day, the pulse of what's happening? Because that speaks to several things. Being able to, have that strategic view of the long term, just like Dr. Kofi was saying about leadership, thinking about the future, not just about here and now. But also you do kind of have to keep a pulse on what's happening here and now. And as you start to scale, that becomes more and more difficult. How do you manage that?
And so again, this boils down to leadership. Because what we've managed to do in my company is that we've developed leaders in different fields who in turn report to me. So people have been empowered. One of the key things is that you must empower others. You can't do it all alone. So people have been empowered who will go out there and make sure that things happen the way we want them to happen, and then they report back to me. But you see, generally in taking decisions, because look, you are only able to take decisions based on the information available to you anyway. And to lead an organization like that with different tools, you look at the whole information before you. And one of the things I look at, does it really fit into our goals?
Yeah.
If it does, then we go for it. Then the other thing is to make sure that it's good for our customers. You see, when we take decisions that are good for our customer, is this decision we're about to take, this product we're about to launch, is it the best for the customer? That's one of the key things that have helped us in this industry. And so when I look around UT Homes, UT Financial Services, and one of the drivers is we take decisions that are best for our customer. And when you do that, it's easy. Every other thing flows because you are serving the customer. And so we put our things in place, we put our measures in place at UT, we do the training, and I am blessed to have a team that works well. They work hard, they work tirelessly, they're effective, they're professional. The reporting structure has been there for a while and it works for us. And this has helped me to keep tabs of what is going on. Even in places where I haven't been, we have an office in Abuja. I haven't been there for a while, but the reporting is so good that I know exactly what is happening there.
Understood.
So these are the things that have
In
helped me.
those checkpoints.
And we're spending that years go by.
Yeah, so you put those checkpoints to keep you abreast of the information that you need. But again, it comes back to I think what's quite consistent about everything you've been saying about creating an environment that allows people, empowers people to be able to make decisions. But I think it starts with getting quality talent up front. So again, that frees you up to be able to focus on the strategic. Again, we could be here for the next hour, but I did say that I'd only take half an hour of your time, which I think we've come up to now. So thank you very, 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 very much. Again, Mr. Adebajo, I've known you for a while as one of my mentors, so it's always a pleasure to speak with you. And Dr. Kofi, it's really a pleasure speaking with you today as well. I've learned so much. I clearly need to improve my book collection as well. So, so I need to say that again because there's something popped up. Thank you once again.
You need to speak to Dr. Kofi about that. He has a lot of books. Dr. Kofi has written a lot of books, so speak to him.
Thank you very, very, very much for your time. Have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you very much.